the role does not define who you are. You define who you are. And so you have to find who you are, what you want to stand for, who you want to be. And then you need to find a place that will allow you to do that. And to me, that's the root of the employee experience. The employee experience is allowing you to be your whole potential of who you are.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic.
Hey everyone, welcome to Create Magic at Work. I'm really excited today because this guest that I am bringing you has such a light about them that we connected and we just hit it off and started talking and have connected since and talked about Edgewalker and been in the Edgewalker Cafe together now. And so I'm delighted to have this conversation today with Dr. Josh Plaskoff. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. J, as his students affectionately call him. He is the founder of the Interhuman Group. As a pioneer in knowledge management and organizational learning, he was selected to the list of the world's top 50 most influential people in tacit knowledge management. In 2022, he was attributed as one of the originators of employee experience. Like, think about that. Like, he's attributed to be one of the originators of employee experience as a new approach to human resources. So that's something really cool that we're going to get into today. He has over 30 years of experience as a leader and visionary, helping organizations, teams, and individuals reach their greatest potential and creating environments of dignity and respect through cultural transformation, personal and collective growth, and learning. He served as Director of Organizational Effectiveness at Anthem and Vice President of Leadership Development at CAR Global, where he spearheaded the implementation of transformational leadership programs and purpose-based organizational transformations. He was the Director of Learning and Experience Design for High Point Global, developing the company practice and citizen and employee experience, and learning for the federal government and becoming a pioneer and nationally recognized thought leader in the field. At ExactTarget, which is now Salesforce, he developed and implemented the International User Community Strategy. He also served as the Director of Learning and Organizational Performance at MS Communications and led the Global Corporate Organizational Learning Strategy for Eli Lilly and Company. He continues to consult with many large for-profit and not-for-profit enterprises. During his concurrent 20-year university teaching career, both full-time and adjunct, he has served as an MBA and undergraduate faculty member for the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University, where he received 2 Teaching Excellence Awards, and on the graduate faculty of the School of Library and Information Science. He's currently Senior Lecturer in Organizational Leadership at TLI in the Purdue Polytechnic Institute. He has written and spoken extensively on learning, transformation, human change, culture, leadership, and employee experience. He received a BA summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa from UC Davis, an MSED with highest honors from the University of Southern California, and a PhD from Indiana University. I asked Josh to be a guest on Create Magic at Work because I was really intrigued about him being attributed to creating the employee experience. And I think back to when I first started in the workforce. I'm Gen X. I don't know if anybody was talking about the employee experience for us as we kind of went into the workforce. So I want to hear from you, Josh. Welcome to Create Magic at Work, and thank you for being here.
Wow, thanks. I'm excited to be here, and I feel like when we first met, it was almost like magic itself that to find a person that was interested in some of the similar things that you're interested in. So I feel blessed that we finally got a chance to connect.
Well, you're in the right spot because the Create Magic at Work community and listeners are all into this stuff. We talk about Edgewalker, spiritual intelligence, quantum leadership, all of those themes are really weaved through every episode, no matter, what we're talking about, really. So can you share a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to focus on the employee experience?
Yeah, it was a long, long, circuitous journey that probably started when I was a kid. I don't want to go all the way back, but you almost have to go back all the way. I never really felt like I fit in anywhere because I always had this different interest than other people. I always was more interested in the complexities of life. Even when I was in elementary school, I was asking questions about life in general and about people and relationships, and I was just an observer of people, and I wasn't interested in what the other kids were interested in, and that kind of always troubled me to some extent. But it also got me thinking about what do you do with this? And I actually was going to be a veterinarian. So I took a lot of sciences, but then I ended up switching and graduating with an English degree. And the idea of knowledge and just how does everything work was something that was exciting to me. I worked in the corporate world early on for a while and was working with artificial intelligence and got kind of frustrated because it didn't feel right. And I ended up going to a seminary. And what happened there was kind of this connection with this other side of me that I had put away. And, I think it's very much in line with sort of what your listeners are probably into, what you're into, sort of the seeker mentality of finding out there's something greater going on here that we're not really spending time on. We're spending so much time on the science and the hard stuff that's right in front of us. But what about this magic that's all around us? And how do we understand that better? And so I went back to my work with that kind of thinking. And when I started working at Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, and pharmaceutical company is very scientific. You're surrounded by all of these, really intelligent people and everything. But I was more interested in how do we create a sense of community in this place? How do we get people to care about each other? And how do we change sort of the workplace from being this sort of stale, environment to one where it really, the magic kind of comes out of a relationship and that helps the work. And it worked. It actually did a lot of stuff. And I sort of started building on that with all of these new ideas. So the science came in and philosophy and religion and all these concepts just started colliding with each other. And to get to kind of the specifics of employee experience, I was working for a company and President Obama at the time wanted to focus on customer or on the citizen and customer service for the citizen. And my company came to me and said, hey, could you write a white paper on it? We want to be the first ones out. And I don't know much about customer service, but I did some research and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we blended user experience from the computer world, which I had done earlier, and organizational development work and customer service, and put those all together and created this kind of new approach called citizen experience, because everyone was talking about the experience economy. So I ended up writing this white paper. It was about a month. That's all I had. And we put it out and it hit it big in Washington. All of a sudden, people and all the big consulting companies were starting to jump on the bandwagon. I thought, well, the same thing applies for employees. So why don't we do the same thing for employees? And that's where it kind of all came together. And so I ended up working on that and I started growing it. But the whole focus was on kind of a radical new approach to thinking about the relationship between the organization and the employee. It wasn't how do we redo HR. It was a totally different approach. And actually, it's sort of gone in a little different direction than what kind of my original intention was, which was much more revolutionary and much more radical, which is more who I am. So that's kind of the background. And there's much more to it, but we've only got a half hour, so I don't want to go into too much.
I'm curious, what was your original intention? What was the radical intention of this employee experience?
So the idea, first of all, is that number one, the employee experience is just a subset of the human experience. So to really understand the employee experience, you have to understand the human experience and human beings as human beings. And it's not a separate thing. It's a matter of looking at the whole human being, looking at their foibles and their emotions and their relationships and everything else. So that was the first thing, is that you had to understand human beings, not as human resources, not as objects, not as things to manipulate, not as means to an end, but as human beings. So that's number one. The second thing was the concept of co-creation, which really comes from the user experience world. And now it's in the agile world too, in terms of computers, is the idea of leaders being, creating the environment by themselves and then dictating how things work never leads to a great experience, because it's never our experience. It's always their experience that I'm just a visitor in. And so I moved from kind of thinking, organizations are not hotels where people are just renting space for a while and doing work. They really should be the home that we build together. And that's how it leads to retention and engagement. All those things that you talk about that all these companies want comes from working together and co-creating together. It doesn't come from being given something that somebody else is and saying, okay, now I just got to do it, because then you just comply. So those are kind of the two real radical concepts that were behind it. And now with, post-COVID world, it's even more important if you think about it, with the people trying to return to work and all that stuff. You can't just say, come back to work. Now you got to give them a reason why. And the only way you're going to figure out that reason why is to talk to them and get them involved and get them engaged in the process. So those have sort of been pushed aside for, bring your dog to work and, foosball tables and kind of the old .com-ish feel of, let's make it funsy gamesies. Well, it's not about funsy gamesies. It's about meaning. And it's about the magic of relationship and connection and community. That's really part of the experience of being a human being.
And I still want to bring my dog to work when I want.
Well, dogs, for some of us, like my dog, she is a person. She is a person. And we have that relationship. She is part of my experience.
You have me thinking of when a company is trying to establish a healthy culture. I tend to think that people want to do work for the greater good, a large percentage, and people want to do the right thing. And oftentimes we get stuck in systems that we repeat. This is how I learned how to do it. This is how it's done. And when we get into these positions, I think it's just, I've really been, stressing lately, like, let's stop and say, how can we do this differently? How can we look at what's been done before and reshape it, do it differently, and take it to a higher level as far as being a quantum leader, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You had me thinking when you were sharing about the employee experience and how they have to feel like they have meaning, they have to feel included. I see a lot of organizations create their values, their company values in a room, with maybe like the C-suite executives or some higher executives. And then they roll that out to thousands of people. And I still hear it. I heard it last week in a meeting I was at. If the CEO isn't leading by their values, if they're not talking about their values all the time and the company values, then it's not going to work. And the people aren't going to feel like they have meaning, and they're going to have attrition and this, that, and the other. And I was sitting there thinking like, well, what if those values aren't the same as mine? And like, is anybody asking everybody, like, can we come together and create these together? What are your thoughts on that? Top down, trickle down. I don't know what you call it.
Driving values through the organization, the old driving word.
Right.
I'm so a little tired of the driving word. Yeah. It's funny you asked that. There's so much richness in that question. There's so many things that are behind it. Let me start by saying I've actually done the opposite with an organization. I actually had the employees create the values and the purpose of the organization, push it up to the executives and said, here are our values, lead to this. And I'll tell you, the impact was amazing. It changed the whole feel of the organization. It changed the whole experience for the employees and the leadership. And actually, it created a huge sense of resilience as they went into COVID, because of the fact that it was everyone's values. It wasn't just the executive saying, here are your values. So I think part of it is the feeling of participation that you brought up, which is so important. But I think it goes beyond participation. It's also that when people look at values, they don't always have the same interpretations. And we assume that everyone has to have the same interpretations of values, and they won't be. So values are there to find your own personal meaning in, and collective meaning at the same time. And this is actually, if you want to get into quantum stuff, there's a thing called the complementarity principle in quantum physics, which is basically the two things that are opposites collide and they have to coexist. Well, this is one of those cases where you have the collective and the individual that have to exist together, and they're attention all the time. And it's so important to recognize that that's part of living. That's part of how we work. So trying to get everyone to say, oh, all of our values are going to be the same and that they're all going to think the same is actually leading to an unhealthy organization, because it also stifles conflict, which actually is what evolves things. Conflict is actually good because it helps to, now not conflict in a nasty sense or in a disrespectful sense, but in the sense of disagreement or putting those opposites together is what leads to a new future. It leads to evolution. So I think that, it's sort of a misunderstanding of culture. To me, culture is, we've sort of turned it into an object that we manage, and it's not. It's really, if you want to get to kind of, related to sort of your creating magic at work idea, it's really the soul of the company. And there's a soul that started it that kind of spreads to everyone that everyone's a part of. And they need to feel that they're a part of that soul and they're kind of living in that soul. But a lot of times it disappears in all the other garbage that's around, all the thinking in terms of concreteness and measurement and all of these things. It just disappears. And so actually I spend a lot of time trying to get organizations to recapture that soul, which really is where the culture is. The culture is the energy that's in that. This sounds I'm from California, so it sounds very California kind of granola-ish, but it's so important that, I'll just bring up one more thing, and because it just made me think, we also think in terms of things like, vision statements, purposes, values. Things are dead. They're static. But life and experience is living. So you don't have a vision statement, you have visioning. You don't have a purpose, you're purposing. You don't have values, you're valuing. It's all verbs, it's all movement, it's all action. And that's another thing that we sacrifice a lot of times in organizations, is we try and pin them down so they become dead. And you lose that life, that constant change. And experience is not about death. It's about constant movement. It's about constant future. And so we can't think in terms of, static. Everything is static. Everything is a thing. We have to think of everything as process and everything as relationship. And so that's, it's a very, there's a deep answer, a long answer to a simple question, but it's not a simple question. It's a difficult question. But yeah, I think the more people get involved and engaged and are able to process for themselves and find their own meaning in those values and to share those and live those, even if they're a little different, it leads to a healthier organization.
Really great insights to think of it as like a living, when you said the soul of the company, I always think of it as like the consciousness of the company or the life of the company, whatever. I love the soul of the company too, and what it is comprised of. And then I know you and I both follow Dana Zohar, the philosopher and physicist who wrote The Quantum Leader. And there's a piece in there that you reminded me of when you were sharing the scale of motivations from Ian Marshall. Have you seen that?
I've seen it. I don't know it offhand exactly, but I have seen it before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a scale that shows, and we can drop it in the show notes too, but it shows like if a company is operating from fear or from anger, and you step into this organization and maybe you're operating from generativity, the best you can get is kind of like a neutralized state, right? And I was like, wow, this scale is almost like a visual of how other people's energetic resonance can affect you. So I think about that a lot, like where's my power in that? And how can I not let these other factors in my environment in an organization affect me? What would your advice be to someone that's maybe working in a challenging organization where they feel like they're not getting a good employee experience, or they feel like we're talking about the soul, right? Maybe they feel like every day they're going to a soul crushing job. I mean, people literally describe it in that way. What would you say to somebody that's maybe struggling with that?
Wow. Yeah, actually, I have conversations about that almost every day with people. And that's kind of why I do what I do. My passion has always been to bring humanity to the workplace. And I've seen too many people feel that they're losing their humanity, or they're crushed, or they're not able to be who they are, or they have to live in a world that doesn't appreciate who they are, or whatever. And it makes me really sad, because life is too short. I think there are a lot of options that you have. My option, which is a difficult option, I'll admit, and it's spent 30 years doing it, was to fight back and basically find people who were willing to be the type of people you wanted to be around in an organization, and do stuff in a very quiet way. So I did a lot of stealth work. All the knowledge management stuff at Lilly came from a grassroots. No leadership even knew about it for years, but it was just people that were interested in working in different ways. And the communities that I built were the same thing. Basically, they were quiet efforts of people that just wanted to change things. Now, there's obviously a limit to that, because eventually the leadership is either going to like it or not like it. And I've had many times where leaders have crushed it, and that happens. And you have to be, you have to be resilient to that, and realize that that's going to be part of life. But for me, it was exciting because I got to see myself transform, and I got to see how others transformed. And for at least the moment and that time, there was that feeling of, hey, we're doing something different and we're actually changing things. And I still talk with people from those years, and they were transformed by it. And you can think, wow, I had an impact on somebody's life, including my own. Sometimes I think you have to be very honest and say, you know what, this is not for me. And I've done that many times too, which is it's not allowing me to be who I am. And a lot of students come to me and say, talk about their career. And I used to have there was a friend of mine who used to say, look for the next person's job that you want and target that job. And I don't think that's the right way of looking at development. Not that he's wrong. That's his approach. But my approach is more, look who you want to be, and then find a place where you can be that person. Because the role does not define who you are. You define who you are. And so you have to find who you are, what you want to stand for, who you want to be. And then you need to find a place that will allow you to do that. And to me, that's the root of the employee experience. The employee experience is allowing you to be your whole potential of who you are. And if an organization doesn't allow you to do that, doesn't allow you to bring yourself to the table, then you have to rethink and say, you know what? Again, life is too short. You only have 30,000 days. That's it. That's all you got, people. And I've used up a bunch of those because I'm an old fogey. So I think, it's interesting because I think COVID has sort of sparked that in people. I think people have been sort of faced with some mortality. They've seen uncles, aunts, friends pass away because of it. And it's becoming a little more obvious that we're not infinite in terms of our lives. We're not, we are mortal. This life will end. And what are you going to do with it? How are you going to make the most of it? And is it going to be a life of just mechanical doing what other people say? Or is it going to be a life of doing meaningful stuff where you feel like you're contributing and you're being who you want to be and allowing who and getting people to appreciate who that is and revel in it rather than try and change who you are? And I think that's a new way of thinking now, because it's definitely a shift from the way things were in the 50s and the 40s, which is, very much, we're going to follow whatever the boss says. And I think even leaders, I've talked with leaders who are high up and they're struggling with it too. I've talked with vice presidents who are struggling with, I don't feel like I'm being who I am. I feel like I'm just, my life is, great. I'm making a lot of money and I'm, in this position, but I'm not able to be who I am really. And they struggle with it too. So it's not just employees at the bottom. It's all over.
You remind me of Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Yeah. And I was talking with somebody recently about this, and it was about, I mean, the idea of calling almost, it's reserved for religion, but I don't think it's a religious thing. I think it's a human thing, which is, what are you being asked to do? Why are you here? Everyone has a reason. Everyone has a reason for being here. And the question is, you got to figure out what that is. And, you got to listen for it and find it. And that's the challenge, and in a corporate world, a lot of people telling you what you should be doing. Now the question is, what is it really? Where's the true voice? And that's the challenge that each individual has too.
The question Destiny asks you every day, are you doing what you came here to do? Are you doing what you came here to do? I think when you shared, seeking an answer to that question, are you doing what you came here to do? I really think that helps separate all of us from this attachment that we have to title when we are, working in the corporate space. And I don't know, that question always for me is very helpful. I share it in a lot of my it's from Dr. Angelis Arian, the companion of destiny. Are you doing what you came here to do? The companion of death. Are you living this great gift of life well? To the leaders that feel a responsibility to have a great employee experience, a great culture, a great soul of their company, and feel like at times they become torn between profit and people. What is your advice to them?
Yeah, this is the challenge of organizational life. I actually created something I call the two sibling model, which is my two sons. I have two sons. One of them, and in most relationships, if you really look at it, you're opposites. So my wife is the complete opposite of me. It's that old Tom Cruise, you complete me thing, Jung has a lot to say about it in terms of the shadow and all kinds of stuff. But I have two sons, and one of them is we call mini me, and one of them we call mini she, because my older son is just like me, looks like me, acts like me, and my younger son is just like my wife. And one of them I would call the machine. Very organized, very detailed, structured, rule following. Everything is very efficient. Everything is efficient in terms of what he does. That's my younger son, not me. And my older son is the opposite. He's more community and people, and he goes to Ohio State University. And like the first month we went and visited him, and he knew almost everybody on campus already. I mean, 40,000 people, and he already knows everybody, And the life of chaos, when he and I lose our car keys and we're running around the house trying to find them together, it's pretty hysterical that my younger son and my wife are laughing at us, because it's like, why don't you just put it in a place where it is? And organizations sort of work the same way. You've got two children that you have to parent, and those children don't get along. My kids, they love each other, but they don't get along. They like to torment each other. And, those of you who have kids probably know how that works. And you can't throw one kid out for the other. We do that in organizations. What we do is we think that what's important is the child is the machine, the efficiency and effectiveness and all that stuff, and what can be measured, because what if you can't measure it, it's not real. And we've been convinced of that through our schooling and everything else, which is a bunch of hooey, because you can't measure love, you can't measure hope, at least quantitatively you can't. And we're convinced of this, and I've taught in a business school where they teach this, unfortunately. But you have these two kids, and we throw out one kid for the other, and the community disappears, because we don't want to deal with that, because it's fuzzy and it's weak and it's unpredictable and it can't be measured and it feels too icky. So what we're going to do is focus on the machine, because that's really what business and organizations are about. But really, what businesses are about is the tension between those two, and this is the challenge that leadership has. Leadership is not easy. If it's easy, you're doing it wrong, because it's not just about making strategic decisions about business and numbers. It's about making decisions where you have people involved, where you have feelings involved, where you have intuitions involved, where you've got to find the balance between what's measurable and what's immeasurable, between what's good for people and what's good for maybe shareholders and stakeholders. And we tend to go toward the machine because that's what we've been taught. I've actually seen a situation where, and I was blown away by it, where one CEO basically made some decisions that his staff was telling him not to do because the stockholders are not going to like it. And he said, yeah, but we're part of a community and we have a responsibility to the community. And really, in this case, I don't care what the shareholders say, because the community right now is more important. I was blown away because that was a tough decision to make. But that's leadership. Leadership, sometimes you have to do what's difficult, but what's right in the moment. So, this idea that organizations or businesses is, it's about business, it's not personal, is a bunch of baloney. It's always personal. It has to be, because there are people involved. And that doesn't mean you don't make difficult decisions. You always have to make difficult decisions. But really, the idea of leadership and leading an organization, you brought the word responsibility, and I always go on this diatribe about the responsibility and accountability. And I'll tell you this because I think it's important. I was listening to the news and everything, and accountability came up all the time. We got to hold these people accountable, hold those people accountable. Like every 5 minutes, somebody's holding somebody accountable, and we still hear it. And it was driving me nuts. And it's like, why is this driving me nuts? And I did a lot of soul searching and thinking, and I realized why it was driving me nuts. Because accountability and responsibility are two different things. When you're holding people accountable, the idea is that it's a pressure coming from the outside. Basically, it's the old, you're a dog, and if you do the right thing, you get a Scooby snack. And if you don't do the right thing, you get whacked on the nose with the newspaper, and that's holding the dog accountable, right? And it's all about fear. You're doing things out of fear for either punishment or reward from the outside, which is the old models of things. But responsibility is responding from within to the needs of others. It's a conscience thing. You're doing it because you have to do it, because you're part of a community, you're part of a group, you've made a commitment. And the idea of holding accountable should be the exception rather than the rule. We're humans, we'll mess up, so you hold people accountable, but it shouldn't be the thing that we're doing all the time. It should be the thing that we do occasionally. But now we're doing it all the time, which tells me that we have a crisis of responsibility. And as a leader, your responsibility is to people and to the organization and to the shareholders and stakeholders and to the community and to the ecosystem and to. It's a broad responsibility. That's why you get paid the big bucks, folks. That's what leadership is. But if you simplify it to the point where it's just you're following only one element, which is, our profits, and that's it, you're really not doing the job of leadership, because basically you're not looking broadly enough. That doesn't mean you're not going to make difficult decisions that hurt people. But then the question is, how do you deal with that? Do you deal with it by helping those people with dignity and respect and, helping them land in a different place if you have to let them go? Or do you just kick them out the door, give them a box and say, see ya, this is just business, so see you later? Well, that's responsibility of leadership too, is how do you treat your people? And that's part of the employee experience. Letting people go is part of the employee experience. How do you do it? Do you do it with dignity and respect, or you do it as don't let the door hit you on the way out? That's the question of leadership.
I think you pretty much just summed up like what a quantum leader can be, or is, how it ripples out to our communities. It goes beyond shareholders. It goes beyond, being a customer service for your team, how it ripples out to humanity and to the planet. It really summed it up there. Before we pull a card for everyone listening and for you, or for the universe, I have one more question. I want to hear what your sense is of the future of work or these future trends of the employee experience. Like it's an Edgewalker question. What can you sense? Yeah. What can you sense, but not yet see?
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm teaching undergraduates right now, and they're in a different place. The work world will change significantly from them. They're maybe not as disciplined as earlier generations in terms of, what we're used to in terms of discipline. However, they want meaning and significance. They want to be part of something that's meaningful. They're not sure how sometimes, but they want to. And I think that the model that we're using right now is not sustainable. I don't think it's going to be sustainable. And I think what's going to happen is that we need to refocus. That's why I think this radical idea of employee experience is a different approach, where it's no longer, the few people that run the show determine everything. It becomes much more of a communal activity I see a revitalization of the concept of community, of joint participation in enterprise, in working together and rethinking things together. I think community is something I've noticed over the years that people really are, what do you call it, clamoring for. They really want it because the word comes up a lot, but they don't necessarily know how to or want to put in the effort to do it because it's very hard to do. And so we've got an interesting situation where we've got the technology making things easy for us in a lot of ways, but the human side of things is not easy. Relationships are not easy. Marriages are not easy. They're not immediate. You can't just push a button and have it work. Human beings are not that way. Computers are, but human beings are not. So the big question is, are we going to be able to understand that the technological world and the kind of, if you will, spiritual world or relational world of human beings are very different worlds? And are we going to give that over to the computer and let it take over? Or are we going to regrab it? And I'm kind of seeing signs that we're going to hopefully regrab it and say, how do we rethink this and kind of reconnect with the relational humanness of us, and then figure out how to create the new work world where we're working together at things. It's never going to be a perfect thing. It's never going to be, everything's rosy and all that. But that doesn't mean you don't try. You keep that as an ideal. You'll never hit it, but you keep trying toward that. You keep moving toward that. And so I see that that's probably going to be the direction. I'm hoping that's the direction that people go with the idea of employee experience and with the idea of the new workplace, is that it becomes more of a house that we build together rather than just a stopping place or a way station or a hotel that we stay in for a few days or weeks or months and then we move on.
Yes.
That's
a great
kind of my hope.
Yeah. And that is a great sense. Will we be sleepwalkers or will we be edge walkers? And the how we keep our humanity in everything, and how we recognize if we are leaning towards phantom connections rather than human connections.
Yeah. And to connect it also, for the idea of quantum physics too, and that we talked about the quantum leader, we've been following the same physical principles for 400 or so years that are only approximations of things. And this is what quantum physics has determined, is that we've actually been playing in a world that's approximation. But quantum physics, the quantum world, is a very different world, and it gives us a whole different viewpoint. And so, right now we're using a lot of assumptions and ideas that come from old physics, old science, and we think that it's all true. And if we think using quantum physics and the ideas of quantum physics, like complementarity, like entanglement, that we're all entangled, that everything is entangled, it leads to a whole different way of living and working and thinking about organizations, about life, about people. And they're starting to see that shift. It's always been on the fringe, and it will probably continue being on the fringe for a while. But it definitely is saying something very different. And I think that now that there's some people, like you, like Dana, like me, some other people that are starting to look at this and say, well, what are the implications of thinking differently? That probably will start to have an impact as well.
Oh my God, I just was like, okay, give me a card as you were under here shuffling. And
oh no,
we wrote this on the show in a while. It's really cool. I mean, we got generosity, and this new thing we're talking. So the affirmation for everyone listening is, I celebrate the success of others, knowing there is plenty for us all. What a great way to tie in all this and collaboration we've been talking about. So generosity, I celebrate the success of others, knowing there's plenty for us all. Josh, final advice to the listeners. How can we truly give and receive? I work with a lot of clients that need to learn to receive more, right? How can we truly give and receive in a balanced way when it comes to, I'm just going to leave it there. How can we truly give and receive in a balanced way?
Wow. I'm going to go back to your card of generosity. I think realizing that we are not separate beings. We're always connected. Everything is connected. Everything is relational. Everything. And actually, that's what quantum physics says. That's what now neuroscience is saying. That's what religion has been saying for a long time. Philosophy, a lot of philosophers have said that, is recognizing that we're not separate things. We're always connected in some way, no matter what. Even when we're alone, we're still connected. And so, getting back to that generosity of focusing on others, not abandoning yourself. You never abandon yourself, but it's a both and. It's I with others. And if we just think about it as I, we'll never get there. But if it's I with others, always I connected to, then I think that we'll get there. And I think that's always a healthy position to take is I with instead of just I.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Josh, if people want to connect with you and learn more about your work and just see what you're up to, how can they reach out to you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, feel free to connect with me through LinkedIn. And also my email address is josh@interhumangroup, interhuman-group.com. The Interhuman Group, actually Interhuman comes from that whole connectivity because we focus completely on relational thinking. And I love to talk with people. I love to connect with people all the time. And just for learning for me too, every time I talk to people, I get to learn. So that for me is important too. So I'm always happy to connect with people. So I'd love to hear from you.
Amazing. And don't forget, if you're listening, always check the show notes because they have a lot of cool information and we drop all the links in the show notes. So you can just click on them right there from your phone and check out Josh and whatever other cool things are in the show notes. So Josh, thank you so much for being a guest on Create Magic at Work. And thank you for sending some magic to everyone today.
Great. Thank you, Amy. And thank you for creating all the magic.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.